I used to have so many judges telling us, I can find those Cactus Cash puppies.
He really stamped
all
his
over.
puppies. But, we had the cooperation of Gwen DeMilta specialed several of his offspring, and she was very much a supporter of him, and that made a big difference. People good bitches coming to him, it made all the difference. And we were very accommodating as far as being available and knocking ourselves out to make sure those bitches got bred. And it just sort of evolved, and people see a dog producing, and
he was such a good producer, and several of his sons have been top producers.
For 18 years, the number one Doberman was either a direct offspring, grandkid, or great-grandkid. Number one Doberman.
Incredible. Welcome to the Better Breeder Chronicles, brought to you by EasyWhelp Premium Whelping Boxes. Elevate your breeding program with EasyWhelp. In today's episode, we visit with Jim and Ann White of Cambria Dobermans. Located in Texas, Jim and Ann are among the most influential breeders of the Doberman breed. Their accomplishments include the top sire and dam in breed history. Champion Cambria's Cactus Cash, the all-time top working group sire, produced an incredible 185 AKC champions, and his progeny have dominated the breed ring for decades afterward. They've bred over 100 champions, and their dogs have won several national specialties, best in shows, and number one dog rankings. But more importantly, their dogs are known for their temperament and health, and are bred to be outstanding family pets. Beyond all the success, Jim and Ann's story is one of perseverance and hard work, overcoming incredible obstacles and devastating losses in their relentless pursuit of excellence. Those who know them best say Cambria is rooted in family values, and they are known not just for producing champions, but also for their honesty, transparency, and the trust they've earned in the global dog community. Join me now in welcoming the masters of Cambria, Jim and Ann White. Jim and Ann, welcome to the show, and I'm excited to hear the Cambria story today. Take us back to your beginning. How did you both get started in purebred dogs?
We started separately. We were both in Dobermans in our own world. Jim started in the 50s with his first Doberman, and I got my first Doberman in 1970. I came from a beef cattle background. My degree's in ag journalism. I was supposed to get a steer to show, but my father worked for Texas Hereford, and I lived in town, so my first 4-H project was a dog. I went to college on livestock judging scholarships and spent a lot of time with livestock, but had my dog. And it happened to be a Doberman from Irene Biven in Irene Nail at that time. And Jim, your first dog was?
Well, my first dog was, show dog. Actually, was a bitch that I was living up in Washington, and that I had bought from Texas. It went back to all the Tannenwald stuff. And I remember I had a male and a bitch, and I went up to Corky Varun and asked him if he would show him. And very politely, he looked at the dogs, 2 dogs, and said, well, I'm full up on dogs, but I can certainly show the bitch. And later on, Corky told me, he says, that was the breeder of the dog with you, wasn't it? I said, yes. He says, take him home and enjoy him, but don't show him anymore. And that was pretty much about the time I started really showing dogs.
That was
Oh, good. That must have been, it must have been for probably not about 1972 or 3, something like that.
Prior to that, he did some obedience with a Doberman.
I had obedience to that. As far as confirmation, that was the first.
Okay. So how did the two of you meet, come together, and form the beginning of Cambria?
I had a bitch I was showing, and I had Teresa and I was showing it. And I went to take her to Teresa, and Teresa and Ann were sharing a house together after Ann graduated from college. And Ann answered the door. And then I asked Teresa, I says, Teresa, and Ann left. I said, Teresa, who was that? And from that time on, I, well, it was very hard to get in to even talk to me at the dog shows and what. But eventually, we started dating, and that started early. I had bred a couple of litters and owned a couple of dogs before that were very famous, but really Cambria, even though I had the Cambria name, started with Anne really, and I.
I had a litter in 1973 that through Irene Biven and Talibar Amplat, who cropped ears, but it was 18 years later before we got together and started breeding. We actually, Jim considered himself a trophy hunter. You were in Dobermans 30-something years before you seriously bred a litter, but you showed dogs of other people's
Right.
breeding. So, and I was in college and a student and poor, and we both were in dogs a long time before and
I did have one dog that became very famous
yeah.
that actually I was living in Alaska, working for Sheraton Hotels, and I had my motorhome. And I came down. I stopped off at Palm Springs, and somebody I says, I'm looking for a male for a friend of mine. And they said, well, why don't you come by Mary Rogers, Marienburg's house? And said she's got quite a few dogs out there. And since I was going on I-10 to coming this way, I did stop off there. And they brought out several dogs and showed me. And but there was one dog that really caught my eye. And back then I had only a Polaroid camera, and I did take some Polaroid pictures of him. And I came on to Albuquerque and stopped there to visit his sister. And I kept looking at those photos, and I called Mary up. I says, Mary, I'll take the dog. Only if he had been in some other homes in his temperament. I says, only if I can get him acting better and get him to eating and that. And she said, okay. So she sent him to me. And there was a fun match that weekend. And so I showed him. And the judge actually gave me a group second and then talked to me. He said, that's going to be an awful nice dog. And that started me. And the dog was Marienburg Sunhawk, who won our national specialty twice. And
number one working dog.
No, he was never number one working dog. No,
number one Doberman.
Number one Doberman, but he produced the number one dog all breeds, Marienburg, Mary Hartman. But yeah, but that was really my start.
All from a Polaroid picture.
Sarah's showing. Yeah.
You mentioned Irene, now Biven, Mary Rogers. Who were the other mentors that you had early in your career?
Well, Mary Rogers, definitely so, and Jim Bennett.
They called him Jim Black and Jim White.
And he had that was the quality he really knew Dobermans.
Okay,
very much so. Jim Bennett did. Some of the other things weren't kosher, really, that he did, but he did know Dobermans. Actually, when Mary Rogers had Mary Hartman, she brought Jim Bennett down to California to teach Mo McGowan how to show the dog.
He showed dogs with flair when everyone else just stood there. He was actually at Jim Bennett's funeral. They had Jim sit with the family. He was like a brother. They were like brothers. They became very close. He was very knowledgeable.
And Anne, any other mentors in your life that made a big influence on your career in purebred dogs?
You know, I'm kind of a loner, and I was very quiet and very shy, so I wasn't good at asking. I read profusely. I lived in a small town. I really couldn't do anything. I had one dog through all of my junior showmanship, and probably my biggest mentor is Jim. I don't know if you would admit that, but
Yeah.
Jim has taught me dogs come first. I mean, I know that, but it's never something we think twice about. Dogs come first, and so many things about breeding. Jim just has a very opinion, and he's got a business mind, and he's confident in what he thinks. I think I came up not so confident, and Jim said only one person can be in charge. That's me. That's right. But I mean, it's more equal now. But Jim, he would be my biggest mentor. Yeah. My first Doberman was from Mildred Bryant, who was not known for Dobermans, but it was sired by one of Irene's dogs. And I was just a kid.
Looking back, can you identify any key moments or experiences that you'd say significantly advanced your journey towards success in the Doberman breed?
My degree's in ag journalism. I worked for cattle magazines in the cattle business. And at one point, Jim said, "Do you want to show dogs? Do you want to breed dogs? Seriously. If you do, we have to move out of the area. We have to start fresh." We had already bred some dogs of significance, but I was
Very much so.
yeah, but we moved to Indiana where we were more,
Okay.
More
centrally
shows.
more centrally located,
And didn't have to travel as far.
kind of a fresh start,
Thanks.
and yeah, it was a big advancement for us. We had already bred Cactus Cash and some other dogs, but it was just a good transition. It was a good business move, really.
Okay.
Um
What year was that?
We were there for 17 years, and we've been back to Texas for
years.
about 9 years. It's
9
been, right, 35 years ago, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we moved. We stayed up there for about 17 years. It was very good area to show Dobermans out of. You could travel so many different directions.
So, after you established your clear vision for what you wanted a Cambria Doberman to look like, what bloodlines or families of dogs did you incorporate to create your vision in the flesh?
I feel like nothing we've done is original. But we stuck with the standard that's so important to us, and we bred to producers. Producers produce producers.
But also, actually, most of our stuff goes back to the Damascens,
I think
to
it's been
that
helpful.
type of a dog.
Jim was a mover. He lived in Alaska and Hawaii and all over. He got to see a lot of dogs, and he had a photographic memory, and he can just like a computer mind, and he can tell you everything about those dogs that he saw. And I think having seen in the flesh a lot of those dogs early on, he still refers back to them. And having been out there in different parts of the country, I think that's made an impact also. But honestly, I think fate has had a lot of to do with our breeding program, because Sunhawk was fate, Cactus Cash was fate.
We never bred the Sun Hawk, though.
We had two dogs sitting in our house, Cambria's Cavalaria and Cambria's Cactus Cash, and we had a friend come to buy a dog, and Jim said, "You pick the one you want, we'll keep the other." And they picked the other, and the rest is history.
The rest is history.
Yeah.
But, well, they're about a month apart.
We like
Very-
both of them.
And very much, and Cactus Cash, who really became the producer, he was younger, and the woman that picked him picked the other dog as a judge in Dobermans and that, and all the time I remind her that I was glad that she didn't take Cactus Cash. Yeah.
Great story. Fellow breeders, see what your breeding program has been missing with Easy Whelp modular whelping boxes. From the durable Easy Classic design to the spacious Easy Classic Tall, Easy Whelp sets a new standard for premium design and performance. Their innovative models were developed for simple setup and maximum safety, with features like the integrated safety rails to protect your next generation. The smooth, hygienic surface allows for quick wipe downs to maintain a sanitary environment. And the new window walled option, which I personally recommend, provides the next level of safety, confidence, and convenience. And for our Better Breeder audience, use coupon code BB15 to save 15% on your purchase. Elevate your breeding program today. Visit easywhelp.com. In your breeding program, what genetic breeding theories or strategies did you incorporate as you established and maintained your bloodline?
Line breeding on producing dogs.
And fronts. Fronts is the hardest thing to get.
Get
And
it.
if you lose it,
You never get
it's
it.
hardest thing to get back. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's sticking with the standard, what's important in our standard. And I don't think pedigrees, but producers, we stick with line breeding. Our dog's Brunswick's kryptonite was important, an important producer behind our dogs. And Jim said years ago, he said, I never wanted to breed to the dog till I saw what he produced, because there were some problems.
He was a better producer really than he was a dogs.
And
Same thing with Sunhawk, really.
And Cactus Cash was a better producer than he was a dog. And Jim's always said, if you want a stud,
Producer.
but if you want a stud dog, don't campaign it, because people will find everything wrong with that dog. And
It won't breed to it.
we've had some beautiful bitches bred to our dogs. That makes a difference.
Oh, without a doubt.
The dam side really makes a difference.
Outcrossing is always an important but tricky thing for all long-standing programs, but we all need it at some point. What have you found to be the secret to successful outcrossing in your own program?
Get in, get out. Go get it. Go get what you want,
Get what you want.
and then get
out.
back. We've
Yeah.
had a lot of success with the Argentine dogs,
Okay.
but we also don't want to get too deep in that direction. So we dip in and come back.
Actually, Cactus Cash was an outcross. And he went mostly back to kryptonite.
Our foundation bitch is the top producing Doberman bitch of all time. And she was a Floral bitch, which was a well-known kennel in Texas at the time. And Jim owned her before we got together, but I was involved with her breedings when we did get together. And she had some faults that Jim's always said if he had to start all over again, he'd start with a better bitch. But she gave in to the sire every time.
Always leaving.
Always gave in to the sire, and we bred to some outstanding sires. And that's behind Cactus Cash. But that's a little dicey going at it that way. It just happened to work out.
In your program, how many dogs were you typically working with within that breeding program?
We don't keep a lot of dogs. We keep a lot of semen because Dobermans, they're like people. Their requirements are high. You cannot warehouse these dogs and have them have a good life. A lot of our bitches go into co-ownerships. We keep semen on dogs. It's probably been one of our biggest disadvantages because I call Jim the equalizer. If they're in the kennel too long, he starts to say, this got to have a home. If they don't sit on our couch, they need to sit on someone else's couch. Their minds are too needy. They need to do a job. They need to be in the house. You can only have, a male. You can't mix males too easily. So we don't keep large numbers. We just keep co-ownerships. And right now we have very few bitches, but we have co-ownerships on a number of bitches. And they come back and we go pick them up and they go home.
Jim and Ann, I know your story is one of overcoming a lot of challenges and obstacles. What were some of the things you had to overcome in establishing and maintaining your program over the years?
One of the biggest obstacles is finding something to breed to
Find something to breed to.
that you agree on.
That
you agree on.
The hardest thing is to continue to keep the level of quality that you feel is worth breeding on. And maybe you get a little pickier as you go. It's hard to please yourself, but it is hard. And sometimes when we do a breeding, we've had a couple of number one Dobermans, and we sold them as puppies, but sometimes you keep the dog with a better front, maybe not, you sell the one maybe that has that little extra sparkle or
You
that
can't
prettier
keep them
head.
all.
And so, if you breed for a piece, then you need to keep the offspring with that piece that you acquired and not say, oh, but I like the head better on this other one. So it's hard to put it all together. And then the puzzle of health and temperament and conformation. And now that we have all these health tests available, some of them are too difficult for the average person to utilize, to understand what it really means. So, like for example, VWD, we have a DNA test. Well, that's great. I've never seen a clinically affected Doberman. I know they're out there, and I know it's important, but it's not as important as heart disease. And so, throwing them out of your breeding program is not an option.
Your selection process has been respectfully referred to as ruthless. Can you explain your evaluation process for selecting the individual dogs that you choose to move forward with in your breeding program?
So you don't know they're great until they're great. And anybody who thinks they can pick them coming out of the womb, well, we can't. And you're always looking at them. They're growing up. You're on top of them. You're always looking at them. But we don't like to evaluate them too soon. I think you can miss a good one that way. 12 weeks is generally where we evaluate. I think Jim has an uncanny ability to go in and pick. I don't know how he does it. He just sees things. And I mean, I spent years studying livestock judging where you're always evaluating, but Jim can pick puppies because I think he can see parts. I think he can see the skeleton under the skin. But a lot of people, you can breed a good dog, but if you let him go, you're not selecting. And he's been asked to evaluate a number of litters for people, and asked to keep dogs that were not going to be kept, and those ended up being the better puppies. But Jim's very good at picking puppies. I think that probably why he does a good job is he doesn't get caught up in the best trained one. He can see the parts. I think it's always looking at angles and how they use themselves. And like he said, this isn't original, but like he says, buy them on the ground, sell them on the table. You can make them look good on the table, but you really need to see them moving around and how they use their parts. And and then
That is one of my famous, I forgot about that, statements. Buy them on the ground, and sell them on the table.
I love it. If you could, describe for our audience what a Cambria Doberman looks like.
I think you look at them and see circles. You see circles, you see angles, you see gentle, curvy circles, not hard angles. And whether you're looking from the front and you see circles, you look at the side, you see circles in the pelvis, you see circles in the front end. You there should not be any hard angles, and they are a one-piece dog. And they're a quarter horse. They're not a standard bred. They should be a working animal that isn't necessarily fancy. And unfortunately, the temperaments on our breed are incredible. But they can also fool a lot of people through training and showmanship, and you have to look past that and see where the plumb line comes down, and not some of the handlers can crank those necks. I mean, I handle, so I know, crank those necks into a pretty picture, but if the legs come out of the wrong hole, it's wrong. They have to fall right. They have to be like table legs under a table. They need to support them. You have to look at that as a functioning. Jim was involved with horses for a while, and I think you start to see. And Jim was also a builder, a home builder, and he can see balance. Balance is extremely important.
Balance is there.
Balance,
Extremely.
moderation. They're athletes. They've got to be able to turn on a dime. We have problems with too much length, and a lot of breeds do too much length out there. They go around the ring and cover ground, but is it really efficient movement?
Right.
So I think when you see balance, you feel it more than as much as you see it. And I'm not sure some people like Jim could even tell you exactly what he sees, but there's no question in his mind when
You
he
just
sees
know.
it. I mean, yeah, I mean, I tend to be the one stacking puppies all the time, looking down on them. So I have to make an effort to get off of them because, Jim,
Well, we have 2 young dogs here right now, and the brother and sister. And the brother hasn't been shown. The sister was shown at the Nationals, and and had another handler show her, and she went best puppy. And and I got home looking at her when she came home. When I or actually, I had never seen her until after the Nationals.
well, we bred her, Jim. So you
I
saw her, but
bred her, but
he's not been.
I've been in the hospital,
Yeah.
and so I had never seen her, and I, I, we have her in the kennels now, and I see her, and I say, "And you've got to show that dog. That dog's one of the best ones we've ever bred." And the brother is the same.
How would you say the Cambria phenotype has developed and evolved through the decades while maintaining the structure, temperament, and health your bloodline has always been known for?
I think in the beginning, we just, we did study groups. We learned under people much smarter than ourselves, and we've just bred the standard. On my computer, I have little notations that have parts of the standard because I keep reminding myself of medium-sized, square, muscular, compact, and powerfully built. Energetic and watchful, determined, alert, fearless, loyal, and obedient. I just never stop remembering and going back and finding things I missed. And I think if you stick with a standard, you just become smarter because you start to understand what it all means. I don't know. That's kind of a tough question, but we have stuck with dogs from producers that before us, and I don't know, we don't sit here and think about it too much. Maybe you have something to add,
Well,
but
it's getting back to the word balance. You know, when I look at a puppy, it's got to be balanced. I'll forgive I'll forgive a little bit of length, especially on bitches. On bitches, New Zealand and England, they say that bitches can be a little bit longer for whelping puppies and that. And I give a little bit of that on bitches, but males, I don't forgive it at all. I want a square dog, balanced square dog.
I think growing up in the livestock industry, if you didn't make good decisions, you were out of business. You had to treat it like a business. And things like length of line is important in a beef cattle because that's where the most important cuts are. And you learn to judge them on hoof, and then you slaughter them and judge them on rail, and you see what's underneath. You just are always trying to see in your mind what's under the dog, what that I spend a lot of time conditioning my dogs on bicycle. I jog and watching them move and watching them become better movers with better muscle tone. But you start to see the balance, and I'm always watching them move. I think that's where you really see them is when they take a step.
So, I'd like to learn a little bit more about your most notable dogs and what made them so special. Who are the dogs that made Cambria?
Betta was our foundation bitch, top producing bitch of all times, 21 champions. And she was Jim's companion when Jim and I got together. Laura Will Betta Magic, Betta. And she was one smart cookie. She was all Doberman. I loved her temperament. And to me, temperament is so important. She never had any obedience training, but she was obedient. She rode in the passenger seat with Jim, and she chase cars as they were going by, and Jim would say, "Get out, I can't see," and she'd hit the deck because he couldn't see in the rearview mirror. She just understood English, and she was so smart, and Jim bred her once before we got together, but she produced 21 champions, some of them better than others, but I think don't you think I mean, she was just a great dog. Even if she was never a show dog, even if she was never a producer, she was a good dog. Don't you agree?
I agree. Yeah,
Mm.
I tried to buy her I think I got her when she was 8 months old. But Floral Kennels was very well-known kennels in Texas. And they told me, no, Ed Bivens wants her. And finally, I remember it was Thanksgiving weekend at the dog show, and Momia guy and Cynthia had the bitch, and they were keeping her. I said, has Ed made up his mind yet? They said, nope. I said, well, look, I'll buy her right now. And so I bought her that day. And she was more than just a Doberman. She was so smart. I never put a lead on her. If I walked her in a roadside park or something, all I had to say to her, better come. And I never trained her. And she, I remember Teresa Nail used to beg me to let her ride with her because she, like Ann said, if she was sitting in my seat and I wanted to see out the rearview mirror, I would holler, better down, and she'd down. And she just, she was a very tough bitch, a very, very tough bitch.
Floral Bit of Magic was the grand dam of Champion Cambria's Cactus Cash, top producing dog of all time. His mother was Cambria's Nakona V Texas and a UD, utility dog in obedience, and a group winning bitch that was owned by a lady that didn't want to special her. So she was shown, but a very nice bitch. Better produced Boots, Nakona V Texas. And then Boots was bred to a dog named Roddy's. His name was Sinbad. Roddy's Sail the Seven Seas, who was, we bred to that dog. Jim traveled all the time, and he had been in Alaska and seen a grand dam of Sinbad, because I think we were the first ones to breed the Sinbad.
We were the first ones.
And he was quite a nice producer. Unfortunately, he had prostate problems, and he passed away early. Because of prostate issues. But we were the first and the last to breed to him. And Jim said he had been to Alaska and seen this bitch. He said he couldn't get out of his
I went up to Minnesota.
Okay. That's
and Dave Goldfine, who owns Sinbad, had the mother.
Mm-hmm.
And then who was sired by Logan, California. Yeah.
My fellow breeders, I'm excited to announce the Better Breeders Certification Program. This program recognizes purebred dog breeders dedicated to the preservation and advancement of their breed. The Better Breeder Institute certifies purposeful conservation breeders who produce healthy, beautiful, and predictable puppies, and who raise the bar with their ethics and breeding practices. Conservation dog breeders have long struggled to differentiate themselves from the backyard, for-profit, and commercial breeders in the minds of the general public. This is the only breeder certification program developed to help purebred puppy shoppers identify better breeders. This program directly supports breed health research and promotes the breeding of dogs that fulfill their breed standard. This is the first breeder merit program that truly supports efforts to breed a better dog. Learn more at betterbreeder.org. Let's transition into Cactus Cash. Obviously, he has quite the story. Want to give you time to kind of talk through the high points of his career.
You don't realize a dog like that is going to have an impact till he's already had an impact. I mean, we weren't trying to make him a top producer. We liked a lot about him. We decided he wasn't a special, but he had, even early on, he had some beautiful bitches bred to him.
No matter who he was bred to, he produced very nice fronts.
He never, you either improved or kept a good front. He really did a good job. Honestly, people said he was short-legged, but he was really too deep.
He was too deep.
In brisket. So he looked, that would keep him from being a special, because he would look, he was just too much front, too much depth.
I used to have so many judges telling us, I can find those Cactus Cash puppies.
He really stamped
all over.
But, we had the cooperation of Gwen DeMilta specialed several of his offspring, and she was very much a supporter of him. And that made a big difference. People good bitches coming to him. It made all the difference. And we were very accommodating as far as being available and knocking ourselves out to make sure those bitches got bred. And it just sort of evolved. And, people see a dog producing and then you get
Well,
more.
Gwyneth Special is the next three dogs that were sired by him.
Actually, the top all-time top winning Fifi, Chronicles, Vinny Vinny,
Yeah.
Vicky, the owner, Jocelyn Mullen, she had a Eddie daughter, and
He called me.
she called Jim and said, I'm looking for an Eddie son to breed to. And we had just finished one. He said, well, this dog's available. We didn't own him. And she did that breeding. I
And
mean,
she bred a Cactus Cash son to a Cactus Cash daughter, Fifi.
a lot of fate involved with, being in the right place at the right time. And
But Dobermans is a high profile breed. It really is. It's
more so back then, it was really a
Well,
number breed.
I'm not sure of that now. I have to, yeah. After seeing some dogs recently, I think the dogs are better today.
The quality is better.
The overall quality is better.
Yeah, you look in the old magazines and you go, well, those dogs weren't quite as good as I remember, but I mean, we had the numbers there was 3 prominent stud dogs at the time Eddie was out, so you
Yeah.
had different directions, some really good producing dogs, and you could go and I tell you, having a strong producing sire makes it easier for you to breed because you could line breed on a lot of other people's breeding. It really, and I think Jim has taught me so much. And one is look past the people. There would be times Jim would say, so and so wants to breed to Eddie. And I go, really? And he goes, and it's a good bitch. I go, you're right. you know, and it just, he would surprise me over and over again, ignoring differences with people because the dogs were worth breeding to or having in our pedigrees. And I think that's probably been a big, he's been so open. People would come to Jim and say, I know you wouldn't breed to my bitch. And he goes, why wouldn't I? Your bitch is beautiful. And Jim's been very available and accommodating. They have to be responsible breeders, not just anybody, but the passion is so strong, the love of the breed is so strong that you just have to forget about
Well, he
the
was
people.
he was such a good a producer, and several of his sons have been top producers.
For 18 years, the number one Doberman was either a direct offspring,
Cactus-
grandkid, or great grandkid. Number one Doberman. all
Incredible.
For 18 years. I didn't know that except that someone asked me to check on some records, and I started printing out pedigrees, and I go, well, that's 18 years of Eddie having a pretty strong impact. But Jim did have this moment one time where he said, I wonder if Eddie's responsible for all the problems in the breed, because you start to feel that pressure too, that maybe you are part of the problem as well. You have to, you, it's not something you can control, but we've been very lucky with health. And Betta was sired, Floral Bit of Magic was sired by Tollivar's Boo Radley, who was a very well-known dog, and he had great longevity behind him. So we did start out with some dogs that are really healthy. Not that we don't have any problems, but we've been very fortunate.
So talk to me a little bit about the Cactus Cash son championing Cambria's Out for Justice.
He was probably more correct than his
He was
sire.
certainly more correct than Eddie.
He was a nice, moderate, very pretty dog, but pretty.
He
But
had a better rear end and a better head, much better head. Actually, people a lot of times ask me, who was my favorite dog, and they all think I'm going to say Eddie. I don't. I said Nick, Out for Justice.
Out for Justice.
Someone I have a call from California today. She doesn't own, but she's a handler showing a Nick son, and but she has another bitch. she wants to breed.
We still have semen on him.
Okay.
We have seen that.
He's sired, Eddie sired 185 AKC champions, and Nick has sired 85. And we've never, and we've kept semen. I guess one of the
And
smart things
that's
is collect-
AKC champions. A lot of dogs are listed. At the same time we had Nick, we had Karma also.
Nick sired some best in show winning and I don't know, I don't keep a list, but he's sired some pretty prominent,
Several.
a bunch of specials,
several.
top 20 dogs.
Yeah. But my memory is really with Nick, I guess, because he was with me so much longer.
Jim and Ann, obviously you've had some of the most impactful stud dogs in breed history, but you've also had some very prominent brood bitches. Can you speak to a couple of those that really stand out in the Cambria story?
Well, Victoria's Secret, and she was a bitch that we sold to a show home, and they brought her back at about 12 weeks, or maybe it's a little bit older, and we looked at it and go, that dog could be a special. She's got quite a nice temperament. And we finished her quickly, and she became number 2 working dog to the number 1 dog all breeds. And she, you know what? Sometimes these dogs come along in our breed and someone will tell you they trained it, but they didn't train it. These dogs just have a temperament that makes them
Shows up.
extra. I mean, just extra. She just exuded. She just loved the show ring, loved the lights. Victoria's Secret was a dog named Secret Desire, Cambria's Secret Desire, which went back to the Cavalaria dog, which was Kafka. And the mother, Jim was having a heart attack, and I sat in ICU and named this litter of puppies, and her name was Cambria's Cardiac Arrest. I should never remember that. I was sitting there. Jim's had a few heart attacks, and Noah would know her because she was owned by some people that they didn't even want to show her, so she was never even finished. She could have been finished, but she went back to some of our dogs, but yeah, she became number 2 working dog, and Tony DiNardo and Sonny Wong were both involved in helping to campaign her. She was a show dog. Another bitch was Champion Cambria's Raymond Parfait, who we sold as a puppy, and she came back. She came back to us right before the Nationals, and we said, let's show her. I showed her the weekend before the Nationals, and she got a reserve, and I said, she doesn't lead well. What kind of training? She goes, oh, I've never put a lead on her. I go, great. So we went to the National, and she went best. Carissa Champino gave her grand prize in sweepstakes, and Esteban Furious gave her grand prize futurity, and Bonnie Linnell Clark gave her winner's bitch, and she went best of winners. And I said, man, this bitch needs to be trained because she didn't know how to work into a lead. And we did some training. She became number 1. We had another bitch that was sired by Cactus Cash, Nova's Zalara v. Kelview, that was sired by Cactus Cash, and we got her and took her to the Nationals and went best of breed at 16 months. And the youngest to ever win a breed at the National, and moved to Indiana in February, went to the Garden. We haven't even unpacked our suitcases, and she won the breed and went group 2 at the Garden. And that was probably a dog that gave us a lot of exposure, a bitch that gave us a lot of exposure, Zalara.
Zalara, yeah.
Miss Cactus Cash.
Yeah.
Yeah. We breed our bitches. Like when they get to be about 2 and they're just getting into the groove of their specials campaign, it's time to breed them. So sometimes their careers aren't as spectacular. I retired a bitch named Mika that we co-bred. And it was a Best in Show winner, but it was time to breed her at 2 years. She was selected at the National a couple of years ago, and it was time to breed her, and we're more interested in what they can do in the whelping box than I remember going to a seminar once with Pat Trotter, and she was talking about the number of puppies amongst some of these all breed number one dogs all breed, and they're like 4 puppies, born because people campaigned them and never bred them. And then when they did breed them, it was too late to get viable litters. So we're excited about the whelping box more than
Well,
the show ring.
as far as Zaja, we never thought she was going to be a specialist, and we came down to Texas and stopped off at her friend's, Hillary Zimmerman, property, and had our motorhome parked there. And Linda George was there from Dobermans down in Houston. And I remember Ann stacking her out there. And Hillary said, Jim, there's not a Doberman in the country that can beat her. But she was so sound and very well balanced.
Very well balanced.
Extremely
We
well.
didn't have a lot of backing behind her, so our campaign was modest.
We did make, and
Yeah, I mean, she did well, but we didn't have a lot of money.
And the story I was about to tell was that Hillary Zimmerman then had a dog that was actually number 1 Doberman in 2015, but 2014 we were having a campaign against her. Dory, what was her name? Right, registered name, but she became the number 1 Doberman in 2015, and we were competing against, and we retired her.
Yeah,
After 2014, I said, Anders, we can't get any better than this. Let's just retire and breed her.
yeah. We had another bitch, Karma, that was doing some winning, and Fifi came back from the West Coast, and we said, you know what, let's retire Karma. It's time to breed her because we're not gonna do that. That was an awful nice bitch.
But this the year that we were campaigning is 2014. Almost every show, Kathy McFadden would be there with a giant schnauzer.
He was number 1 all breeds.
The number 1 all breeds, and we go group second,
Yeah.
group second, group second.
Yeah, we had 2 number 2 working dogs, both to the number 1 all breeds. The Matisse was the other one that we were number 2 to.
Yeah.
We enjoyed the competition, but there's this level to which you can aspire to.
Are you preparing for your first litter? Or do you want to outfit your whelping room in style? If so, check out Whelping Bundles from Easy Whelp. The Easy Whelp Starter Pack includes a modular whelping box, heating combo, and reusable pad. Step up to the Essentials, Pro, or Elite bundles to add a variety of premium whelping necessities and accessories. Ensure your whelping operation is world-class with Easy Whelp Bundles. Visit easywhelp.com today. Jim and Ann, many people look at incredibly successful programs like your own, and they only see the success. What they don't get to see is the rest of the story. As we mentioned earlier here, your story has been one of many obstacles and losses. But what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your own breeding program?
Well, most recently, someone asked once when we were going to stop breeding, and I thought, well, I never thought about stopping. This is what we do. Are we supposed to stop? But we were going along. I was down in New Orleans at some shows, and I was going to come home, do a 2-day turnaround, and go to Hutchinson, Kansas with a bunch of dogs. And in between, we had a bitch come in, heat a little bit early. And Jim said, well, if she times it right, maybe you can take her up with you. With the Sire was up somewhere in the Midwest. Maybe you could take her up with you to Kansas. And then he called me. He said, they're going to let me do a progesterone on Sunday at the vet clinic. I'm going to run in there and get a progesterone. And then he called me again. He goes, wow, her numbers are going up there. I'm going to get on the road. I'm going to go on and meet the dog up there. They're coming down from Michigan. I'm going to meet him somewhere in Missouri. And I said, okay, I'll be home about 10:30 at night, and I'll just check on you. And the next morning when I checked on Jim, instead of talking to Jim, I talked to the EMT. The paramedics were picking him up, and I wasn't quite sure what happened, but he had a medical emergency. And at that point, he wasn't real coherent, but
I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, I quickly realized, man, I got my husband up there and 2 dogs in the van because he was gonna deliver a bit for me too. And so I thought, Jim, he's had some health issues and he's pretty tough, and I thought he'll be okay, but I gotta get those dogs out of there. I've gotta figure out what to do with the dogs because they're gonna be in the hot van. And, I made some phone calls and found a friend that came and got the dogs, and then I, within 24 hours, was able to get on the road and get up to Missouri, Rolla, Missouri, and then I got to the hospital and with 1 pair of clothes, and, a week later, I'm still up there, and Jim had a heart attack and 2 strokes and was air flighted to St. Louis, and I didn't think he was maybe ever gonna come home again. A gestation later, this we got the during this during this ordeal, I had friends up there and they said, "Hey, we'll get the bitch bread." I said, "I appreciate it." They, "Do you wanna get her bread?" I go, "Yeah, we need to get her bread." Um, and in passing, when all this was going on, they said, "We got her bread." Okay, great. Let's and then I'll, deal with Jim. And it was a life-changing experience, and, I had a lot of people, dog people, that I don't know what I would have done without them. Linda Kane, Great Danes from Kansas City, she was there. Karen Foose, my obedience friend from St. Louis area.
Yeah, Stevenson.
Jan Stevens, and they all helped me get up there with a vehicle and get the dogs and get to Jim. But Jim, it was June 2nd, and he didn't come home until August 15th. The puppies were born, and, I actually bred another bitch because I was a little worried that that bitch wasn't gonna get pregnant. And, when June was up there, my friend Linda came, she said, she's visited him a few times. She goes, I don't even think he's gonna make it. And the doctors didn't think he was gonna make it. And she said, I'm gonna send me some pictures of you and the dogs, and I'm gonna make some posters and take him up there. And she did. She put him on. I didn't talk to Jim for 2 months almost.
Well, they were there when I was in ICU for 64 days.
And
I didn't even know who.
the doctor said, I don't know who did these posters, but they were genius because when they brought those
Yeah.
posters out, he said he started to come around. He started to wake
I
up.
started to see the pictures of the hands and the dogs,
Yeah.
and I didn't know who I was when I woke up, but I did start to see that, and it did help me maybe want to go further.
Yep.
I mean,
To get going again. It's been rough. It hadn't been easy since he's been
Yeah.
home. But the dogs, I say the dogs will kill him, but that's what keeps him going. We've been planning breedings. We've been putting when things are too difficult to really think about, we just start thinking about what's in front of us. Our puppies, our breeding program, getting the bitches bred, and where we're going from here. Maybe that's crazy at our age, but that's what we do. That's what we've always done.
but when I came home, this place was immaculate. The kennels were, everything was clean, just it's immaculate. She was dealing with 2 litters, 19 days apart. And if it hadn't been for Anne, I wouldn't be here now.
But we're not done, and, yeah, this is what keeps us going and gives us something to. I mean, there's other things in life, but it's,
But I enjoy looking at the puppies, taking them for Anne and all that. And all that. We stack them. She's wanting to stack them almost every day for me to look at. And
well, we look at them together, but you realize your confidence is in your breeding partner, and you start to go, "Man, I need to take in every bit of this because I'm not. I mean, by myself, I'm just not the same as without Jim, and we've been doing this so long.
well, I wouldn't be here without Anne.
Yeah, but
And that's the honest truth.
but I think we play off of each other. Jim's very outgoing and very confident. I'm not so much that way, but I'm more the emotional part of it probably and detail part of it, but Jim's more the business part of it. Jim loves the neonates. I love the training of the dogs as they get older, but we try to fill in for each other.
Thinking back over your journey in the Doberman breed, what are you most proud of?
Our goal is to leave the breed as good or better than when we left it, when we started. And I think that we have a consistency. The best thing is to get a call from a pet owner that says, "This is the best dog I've ever had. This dog makes my life better. This dog is so cool. I wake up in the morning and I can't wait to spend time with him. It's got a great temperament. It's beautiful. Everybody brags about it. My vet thinks it's the most beautiful Doberman they ever saw." We're not creating cures for cancer, but we're making people's lives better. These dogs are incredible companions, guardians. They make people feel safer. They make people feel that to get out and become more physical, running with them, and they just add so much to people's lives. And we get calls and texts and emails. That's what it's really all about. The dog show stuff is important. It brings us together. We're checking. Everybody has to do their health testing and breed good temperaments in a consistent looking animal. That's what we put on each other. But really, these dogs are first and foremost companions that people love these dogs. I think something else, I don't know if this fits in, but that we're proud of is the condition that we get these dogs in. We have Jim's was in the building business, and we've set up a kennel that's it's a good working kennel. We have paddocks for the dogs they go out on every day. We have jump runs. We have a system that our dogs are in meticulous condition. You can't cover anything up with hair, and it means it's really important to us that our dogs are in the best in condition. I bike them, I run them, I jog them, I walk them, I put them out in the paddocks. They're athletes. They have to be in athletic condition. I think
Yeah.
the condition that we keep our dogs in is real important to us. That we never let a dog go out that isn't bathed and has short nails and has ripping muscle when they've been here a while.
Is there a breeder you'd like to see featured on the Better Breeder Chronicles? Then go to betterbreeder.org/nominate to let us know. We are looking for master breeders, whether they are highly acclaimed or they work quietly in anonymity to move their breed forward. Better Breeder Chronicles puts those individuals on their rightful pedestal and shares their story with the purebred dog world. Nominate your most respected breeder today. Go to betterbreeder.org/nominate. Jim and Ann, to that aspiring breeder who's listening to the Cambria story today, if there was one thing you'd hope they'd take from your story that would help them in their own journey, what would it be?
To take the time to learn. I see
Mentor.
to find a good mentor. Jim always says, accept and reject. Listen to people, but decide. You make it your own. You take their take on something, but make it your own. But don't stop learning. Unfortunately, I feel there's a lot of confidence bigger than beyond knowledge sometimes, that the people speak with great authority, and they really aren't quite there yet. I think maybe we don't give ourselves enough credit for. We sort of sit back and listen a lot, but you have to learn. You have to the animal husbandry part, the understanding. It's a whole lot more than a dog show and a trick pony out there. You've got to understand. I have books everywhere. I go back and read on the history and pick things up. You just need to keep learning, and don't be afraid to ask. Jim loves to talk to people. I'm not a real phone person, but Jim loves to talk to people about old dogs and experiences, and you know take advantage of it.
Well, I think that probably respect for your
Respect.
Yeah.
Respect for the
Yeah.
people that came before you. We we have broken some records, and that's kind of tough sometimes because you take that record away from it's never intended. But we so respect the dogs that came before us and the people that bred those dogs. Our dogs are just an extension, and we're lucky and grateful. They're not our ego. We have egos, but our egos aren't that tied up in the dogs. It's just like it's a piece of art, and you just enjoy being a part of that creation and taking what someone's sent down to you or allowed you to take, and you just hope someone comes along and continues that.
We put more show quality puppies into pet homes
We do it all the time.
than we do into show homes.
It's hard
They're
to
good homes are very, very important.
Yep. Finally, after your breeding days are done, how do you want breed history to remember Cambria Dobermans?
I don't know that we contributed to the good health of the breed, that we did everything we could to try to create an animal that
I'll tell you this.
quality.
At my age and my health the way it is, I probably don't have very much longer to live. But I can tell you this, Anne is better than me of taking care of dogs. She is. She doesn't give herself enough confidence.
And we work together. We're a team.
She's much better.
We're a team.
I learned that when I came home and from that long ride from St. Louis, Missouri, they gave me 4 hours. I was in a rehab clinic here, but they let me go out for 4 hours. And Ann picked me up and brought me here. There was flowers everywhere. The grass was green. Everything was neat, and the dogs were in good shape. And they followed her everywhere. They didn't follow me. They followed Ann all over the yard, all the time. And that's what I like to leave that. And she has respect for all the handlers out there. She never causes a problem. She's never had a bench show committee call on. I've had 2 or 3 follow me.
Jim says what he thinks. Has sometimes no filter.
But Ann is never, and the dogs are always clean. They're always neat. They're taken care of. We have 2 motor homes, and they're taken care of. They couldn't be in better hands.
Yep. If breeders want to learn more about your dogs and your breeding program, I know you have a really nice website. Where can they find that?
CambriaDobes.com.
Okay.
We're on Facebook, and we're accessible. If we don't mind people calling us, texting us. We love the breed, and we're happy to share what we have.
Jim and Ann, this conversation has been terrific. It's been an honor to hear the Cambria story on Better Breeder Chronicles. Thank you very much for this story.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this chapter of the Better Breeder Chronicles. We hope you found the Cambria story with Jim and Ann White captivating, and that it will inspire you to pursue your highest goals in your breeding program. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. At the Better Breeder Institute, we encourage all conservation dog breeders to embrace your fellow breeders as partners and collaborators rather than competitors and rivals. With the unprecedented challenges we all face today, successful breeding programs can no longer operate on an island. Our purebred dog breeder community must come together, with everyone pulling in the same direction. This is crucial if we're going to successfully preserve and advance our beloved breeds. I'm Matt Stelter, closing the book for today. Best wishes to you and your breeding program from all of us at the Better Breeder Institute. We'll see you in the next chapter. Take care.